Dubovoy? Yeah. Dubovoy, gotcha. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session, a breakout session, and it's on the how to support the right to choice for people with disabilities. My name is Cheryl Stradinger. I currently chair the North Dakota State Council on Disabilities. And we're here to welcome, let's see, Mandy, Dendy, and Angie Dubovoy. So if they want to come to the stand right away, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome everyone. If you did not get a blue folder, raise your hand and we'll scurry one over to you. And if you need large print, I forgot to ask, but we do have large print, so let me know. You can swap your folder out. We're not going to run through the folder during the presentation. It's things for you to take home and use afterwards. So as Cheryl mentioned, I'm Mandy, that's Angie, and we're going to get rolling here and be very respectful of your time. Thank you for being patient with us as we're getting a slightly late start here, but we're ready to go. So today we want to, the conference was very well named for us, Embrace Your Voice. We want you to embrace your choice. And so we want to make you aware of something that's fairly new to North Dakota and might be a way to help you use your power to choose and retain your voice and embrace your voice. So, with no further ado, we'll get kicking in here. And I should give us our legal disclaimer that we are not giving you legal advice, but we encourage you to come up and talk to us later. So if you have something specific you'd like to talk to us about, we still can't give you legal advice, but we'd be happy to talk with you about it afterwards. Hopefully we'll have time for questions, but we'll see.
Okay, the next part we're going to talk about is in 2019. North Dakota put supported decision-making in law, and it allows people to make their own decisions. We're going to be going through 4 different areas. Capacity, let's talk about it. What is supportive decision-making, and do you need it in writing? The first area we're going to talk about is capacity. Legal capacity, basically the United Nations General Assembly in 1948 states that everyone has the right to recognition as a person under the law. And this means that you have rights and you have the right to utilize your rights the way you want to. So the next area we're going to talk about is mental capacity. And so a person's mental capacity varies from moment to moment. And it is identified, and you use your values, beliefs, and your preferences in developing and learning about your capacities. There's changes in our capacity. Sometimes we have, we have some slides here that have a lot of stuff in them that relate to each other, and so sometimes I might find myself talking about a variety of things, but our capacity varies with our disability, our age, illness, environment, other things that affect our capacity. So it depends on what's going on with us that day, what's going on with us that moment, and what's going on with us related to any of these things. In North Dakota, if the court finds a person lacks capacity or is incapacitated, that person may be ordered to have a guardian. Incapacitated means someone whose disability affects their ability to make and communicate important decisions, and it can be, if someone's needing to make decisions and it's going to put them in danger, then that's where that comes in. What is guardianship? Guardianship is a legal relationship. The court appoints a person a guardian to make decisions for another person, and the person who has guardianship is a person subject to guardianship. This means that everyone can legally make decisions. That person can make legal decisions for you, and they're basically a substitute decision maker. I'm going to have Mandy do this one. She's always great at this slide, and she likes cake.
I do.
You should say one thing about your cake.
Yeah.
Cakes for your family members, and you really decorate them.
Yep, every time somebody in my family has a birthday, they get to choose the flavor of the cake, the flavor of the frosting, and the design of the cake. So it's quite complicated in my family. I've made, the most recent one was a frog cake that was 4 layers tall. had fondant frogs on it, was chocolate cake with peanut butter frosting in between the layers, but vanilla frosting on the outside. So I have created kind of little divas in my children when it comes to cakes. So yes, I love cakes. These are not my cakes though. I wish I could say they were. So guardianships may be full or limited. And the reason the cakes are up there is because that's your visual. So full is kind of the whole package. If somebody has a full guardianship, they probably have very few legal rights to make decisions for themselves. Whereas somebody in a limited guardianship generally has a lot more decision-making ability. They're in control of more decisions. And so we look at that kind of what slice of the pie is yours and what slice is your guardian's if you're in a guardianship. So what decisions do you get to make legally, and what decisions does somebody else legally get to make for you?
The next area is Free Britney, and that is basically a movement. Brittany, you want to talk about Brittany?
Brittany actually just dropped a 22-minute video talking about her conservatorship yesterday, I believe. She was in a conservatorship for 13 years, which is a lot like guardianship in North Dakota, and very difficult for her in a lot of ways. And if you'd like to learn how difficult it was, you can certainly, Brittany has been very vocal about this. She is now free, so Free Britney isn't really a movement anymore, but it's a reminder that if somebody is in a guardianship or a conservatorship and their ability to make legal decisions for themselves puts them in a position where it's very hard to get your legal rights back to make decisions. When a court has said that you're not capable of deciding and they take away those legal rights that Angie talked about, it's hard for you to show the court that you're legally, your mental capacity is there and that you can legally start making those decisions again. Not saying it's impossible, but in Brittany's case, it was very difficult. So you can go online and find out all about Brittany if you haven't heard.
Great, Mandy. The next area we're talking about is best interest versus expressed wishes. Best interest is what a guardian would do. They try to help you with making decisions that are for the best interest of you. And expressed wishes is what we're talking about more so today with supportive decision making. So if there's things that you want, I know that just the speaker that talked earlier said, I can't remember exact words, but what do you need help with? Or do you need help? What do you need help with? My thing would be, what do you want? What do you need? And so that would be what you would want to have for your express wishes. So I think that's a good example of that. Dignity of risk is the rights and choices and the options to take risks. We want to learn, grow, and improve our lives. Capacity comes to decision making. It's not an all or nothing thing. You may be making decisions. Some decisions you might be good at making, some of them you're not. And I think that's probably the way it is for all of us. And some of us are good at certain decisions. Sometimes we have certain people that we call or we contact for them to say, hey, you know what? I don't know what to do with this. And so that's where that comes in too. The other thing is to remember that, decisions are not something that are something that you can, it's a trial and error thing. You can make a decision, and if it's the wrong one, next time you learn from it, and then you try a different decision. So there's a lot of different ways for that. And I think the main thing is when we're working with somebody or assisting somebody, to make sure that you let them know all the options. Like even if somebody, let's say they're going to have a provider that they're going to be working with, for them to know all the different options of who are all the different people that they can ask, who are the different people that know stuff about this information, things like that. So takeaway from this slide would be that mental capacity is our ability to think and make decisions, and legal capacity is your right to make decisions.
Okay, on to topic 2. What is supported decision making? So the reason we talked about guardianship and mental capacity is because it relates to your ability to make decisions. So now we're going to tell you what supported decision making is, and you can think about if it might be a good fit for you. So it has SDM up on the screen. That stands for supported decision making. It's a little easier for us to say. So if you see that, that's what that is. There's 3 parts. 1 is your decision maker. In law, it's called a named individual. 2 is the supporter. and that's the person who helps. And 3 is your agreement. And so in North Dakota law, supported decision-making means gathering information. So you could ask somebody to help you gather information about a decision you're trying to make. You can ask someone to help explain information for you. If you're going to the doctor and you just want another person there to help kind of gather that information for you and help explain it to you, that's cool. Supported decision-making can help you with that. If you want somebody to come with you or help you figure out pros, cons, is this a good or bad choice? What's going to happen if I say yes? What's going to happen if I say no? That can be done with supported decision-making too. They can also, your supporter can come with you, whether you're going to college or you're at the doctor's or you're dealing with renting an apartment, whatever that looks like, that supporter can come with you and they can tell somebody your decision. I'd like a 1-bedroom apartment. I have a dog. It's really important for me to have a dog. They could tell that person that decision if that's your decision. Finally, your supporter, if you are in a guardianship or if you're in proceedings, if you're in something to start a guardianship or review a guardianship, your supporter can come to court with you and say, hey, Your Honor, have you ever heard of supported decision-making? Here's what it is. So you, the individual decision maker, you're the person asking for help. And I like the way Angie said it. Like Russell said, what help do you need? How can I help you? That is what your supporter is going to do for you as a decision maker. So you are the architect. You are the builder, the designer. You are the artist. It's whatever kind of help you want. And if you don't want help, that's cool too. You'd be like, I don't need help here. I got this. I'm making these decisions all by myself. So you get to design what this agreement looks like, what this help is going to look like. And you are in control. If that's not clear, we're going to hammer it in here. You are in control. So you can have more than one agreement for the same decision with all kinds of people. So for example, my favorite example is I'm going out for supper tonight. I don't know where to go, and I need help. So I could enter into an agreement with all of you to help me decide where to go eat. I need 3 pieces of help. 1, I need to figure out where to go. 2, I need help with my budget to figure out what places I can afford to go to. 3, I need to figure out how to get there. Am I going to get a bird scooter? Am I going to get a lift? Is it close enough where I can walk? Like, what should we do here? So I could enter into agreement with all of you. You could all give me that advice. No matter how great your advice is, I don't have to listen to any of you. And I can just go out the hall and go downstairs and ask Deidre, or I can find Russell or whoever else, and I can ask them. And then I don't have to listen to them either. So it's really beautiful because I'm in control. I'm driving the bus. So I can take advice. I can choose not to take advice. I can choose to ask 20 people, or I can ask 2. And it doesn't matter how I communicate as a decision maker. If that's sign, if that's braille, if I use a sight board, if I, have my own vocal communication style, as long as I can communicate and make decisions, I can use SDM. So your supporter, they're the helper. They cannot make decisions for you. So it's different than a guardianship. If you're familiar with a guardian, your guardian can make decisions for you. Your supporter cannot. They are just helping you. So nobody can hand your supporter a document and say, I need a signature. If you go to the doctor, your doctor should be talking to you, not your supporter. And so here's the agreement piece. In North Dakota, it's a written, signed agreement, and it's either witnessed by 2 witnesses or it's a notary public is signing off on it. So it's between you and your supporter. And so if you choose to have multiple supporters, you have a different agreement with each supporter. And it covers the same basic areas you're going to see guardianship. Healthcare, your medical stuff, where you live, your residence, your finances, your money, your education, which is your schooling, your legal affairs, anything that you would need to have an attorney for, and where you work, your employment. All of those things you can use SDM for. And so if you have a supported decision-making agreement, it cannot be used against you to say that you're having trouble making decisions. It is proof that you are a decision maker and that you can make these decisions on your own. And so if you're looking at guardianship, if you're in a guardianship, courts are supposed to be looking at, is there any other way to do this? Do we need a guardianship? Guardianship it's your last resort. So if nothing else works, guardianship is a great option. Supported decision-making would be an option that you would look at first, somewhere up on the first kind of steps that you look at. So courts should be looking at, will supported decision-making work? If you find your judge doesn't know about it, please feel free to tell them, and we can give you materials, all the materials you would like to make that happen. So supported decision-making can be used instead of a guardianship. There are some advantages, and I should put our disclaimer in now. We are not saying guardianship is bad or that it's wrong. Absolutely, guardianship has a place. We're not saying supported decision-making will work for everyone in this room or everyone that you tell about it. It has its place as well. We're just giving you an option and telling you about it. So in guardianship, only courts can change it. It's a court order. You have to go to court and go before a judge to have any changes. Supported decision-making, it's just between you and your supporter. You can change it at any time as a decision maker. So you don't have to go to court. It's super easy to change. We'll tell you about how you do that at the end. And when you use supported decision-making, you can use multiple supporters. So if you know somebody who's really good with like money, you can use that person to help you with financial decisions if you choose. Whereas with a guardianship, your guardian might not be an expert in everything that you might want help making those decisions with. So supported decision-making can be used even if you have a guardianship, because guardians are already required, it's one of their jobs in the law to involve people in guardianships in decision-making. So you should be asked, what do you want to do? You should be helping to make those decisions anyway. So supported decision-making can help your guardian, or if you are a guardian, can help that decision-making process be more successful. So your takeaway, 3 parts. It can be used instead of guardianship. It can be used with guardianship. And it can help you build decision-making skills. And so Angie's going to take us to topic 3.
All right, it's good to talk again. Getting started, this area is about making choices. When you're working with individuals or even with yourself, you know, when we start making our own decisions, we start making them we make a decision, we have a choice, we make a decision, and it doesn't work out for us, so what do we do next time? Do we maybe do the same thing again? Sometimes, maybe. And then after a couple times, we're like, I don't want to have this happen again, so we change that. And so that's how we do it when we work with other individuals that we're working with, or anybody that we're talking to, our friends or whoever, is talking to people and just saying, you know, what kind of choices do you need? You know, most of the time when you're talking to a friend, they're going to come to you with a problem, or if you're working someplace, people that you're working with are going to ask you, you know, this is what's happening for me. And you can ask them, you know, what do you think your options are for that? And talk about what those options are. Talk about those choices, and then, you know, figure out who they can ask to help them make those choices. Is there anything that would make this decision better or worse? And what would be the consequences if you did this or did that? And so that's kind of what that area is about. Using supportive decision-making to build capacity, basically starting small, taking baby steps like he talked about on the stage when he was talking. He said takes baby steps. So asking people, you know, what do you really want? Once you know what they want, how do we get that? What are some options of how to get that? How do we make those choices? How do we practice making decisions and becoming more independent that way? I always like to encourage people that if you have a meeting that maybe you have a team that works with you, if you have a group of people that work with you, or if you're on a team, making sure that you have your voice and being able to start making decisions. And if you have a guardian, I would talk to your guardian too and just say, hey, I want to start knowing more about this. I want to know more about this. Things that are important to you, start speaking up about those things. And I know that Mandy talked about how that fits with guardianship, and I like to encourage people that are guardians to start adding this into their guardianship with the individuals that they serve, because they're a guardian only because they have that individual. So that individual is probably more important than they are, to be honest with you, because they wouldn't be a guardian if that person wasn't there. So the next area is brainstorming. It's a great resource. There's a website on there, and P&A has developed a worksheet that you can utilize. And the worksheets are in their folders? Yes. All right. Yeah. Okay. We kind of talked about some of this, but we've done different trainings together, and so each one's a little different. And it's fun working with Mandy. So anyways, identifying supporters. I think, asking, if you're I guess I look at this and I just think of regular people. We're all just regular people, right? We all have to take a shower sometimes. We put clothes on every day. We comb our hair, right? Everybody? So.
I'll just say, except for my 10-year-old, she's gigantic hands in this morning. Shower every day, right?
But that was communication. She was telling you what she thought of it. Yeah. She told you what she thought about that. And so I guess, when you think about it, if you're working with somebody or you have a friend that has decisions to make, and it's not our job to make their decisions for them, but it's our job to be a good listener. And so people can choose to be a supporter. They can choose to just kind of blow you off, or they can be a supporter. And if they want to be your supporter, they'll let you know that. You need to ask them, can you help me with making this decision? Because people have rights like you do, and so we just need to be respectful of other people. Identifying supporters. If you can't think of a supporter, and I think one thing that happens with a lot of people is that sometimes we think, well, who are our friends? Who are our acquaintances? Do we even have friends? I mean, sometimes there's people that don't even have friends, and I think that's not uncommon for people not to have a friend. And so they don't even know who they would go to or talk to about a decision. And so that's the first thing to probably help people with, is help them identify who is in their life, who are their natural supports, who they trust, a person that actually has capacity that makes actually decent decisions in their own life, because if they don't, that's probably not a good supporter for them. So looking at, if they're involved in church, family members, other people that maybe there's people that they know someone that's really good with their money. Maybe it could be a friend of theirs. They know somebody that lives where they do that's really good with their money. Maybe that person would be a good supporter to help them with making decisions about money. So things like that. Oh, yeah.
Well, just wanted to say that worksheet on the screen there is also in your folders. And it's there. All of these materials are available on our website too.
Supporting supporters. I think a lot of times supporters need to be supported also, because when you're a supporter, a person could become a supporter from being the guardian. And so if the person is no longer going to be a guardian, but they're going to be a supporter, they have to kind of back away a little bit. And so they're not going to be able to be making the decisions anymore. And so that's just an area where they sometimes will need support. You see that with parents and guardians. Sometimes the parents are the guardians, and they got to start backing away and letting that person make some more decisions by themselves. So basically it shows the person's flipped down on their head, because they're not necessarily going to be, they're going to be doing the thing that we talked about earlier. We talked about making, what's your express wish, what's the best? And so being able to pull away after making all those decisions, it's kind of like when you have kids and they grow up and they leave and you don't know what they're doing all the time, and sometimes that's good. But when you do know what they're doing, you got to just step back and let them make decisions. And so I think it's that way with people, no matter what our age is. So supporters need to be good listeners, be able to put aside their own values and preferences. We aren't able to, if you're a good listener, you're not going to be putting your values and preferences on somebody else. You're going to be listening to what they're saying. You're going to be listening to what things they value. You're able to gather and understand the information. So if you're a supporter, you need to be able to understand the information so that you can tell people about the information. And so be able to follow directions, not to have judgment on other people, being able to accept people for right where they're at, and being able to put aside your own beliefs and values. And I do think that that is a challenge, I would say, for most people. And so being a supporter is going to be a challenge, because we want certain things for ourselves and we assume other people want the same things, and that's not true. And then the idea of dignity of risk. If there's a decision that someone's going to make and Maybe they're going to, can anybody here think of a decision you've made that was a little risky? What's a decision that you've made that was a little risky?
Well, the decision I made that was debating as to whether I should about getting a rep payee, because right now I have one, but it was kind of a tough decision between me and my team. But I decided that, hey, if I want to do some fun activities and I want to save money, I decided the best way to make that, to go on fun trips, save money to go on fun trips like this one and conferences, other conference trips, like in the Twins trip, and Red trip, and basically the Valley Fair trip with the listen, was that I have a rep payee to help me make my decisions for my finances. So I'm glad I did this, and I'm glad they helped me make the decision of which cell phone carrier to go with that would be cheapest for me. When AT&T took over Alltel, my team and myself decided that Verizon would be the best resource for me because I get the employee discount on my cell phone bill, and that was my choice too.
I wasn't planning on doing that, but I thought, you know what? I think that's probably the best part of the training is when I can actually hear from somebody else a decision that they needed help with making. And then also there's things that he benefits from now, but there's also things that he doesn't get now. So it's kind of like pulling and taking giving and the taking. So that really falls into this too. So being able to being able to understand the dignity of risk and understanding risk taking and understanding wise decisions, and now he said he gets to go on more trips. So that kind of all fits with that. So, but one thing we need to remember is that supporters don't make the decisions. They're a supporter, they're a good listener, they don't place their values on other people. So knowing yourself, knowing knowledge of the person that has a disability, how do they best communicate? I think sometimes what happens is, maybe that person, maybe yourself, you communicate better with pictures and having something that you can listen to. You maybe communicate better with sign language. There's different ways of communicating, and so the person that's supporting them needs to understand the different areas of that person, what their needs are, how they learn best, how they communicate best. Tell your supporter everything that you want them to know, how much time it takes for you to make a decision. There was a gentleman that I worked with that it takes him longer to process information, and it took me a while to figure that out because I tend to talk fast, and I found myself working with him, and I've learned a lot from him for that reason because he shares with me that it takes him some time before he can answer your question, things like that. And so it's important that the supporter is really the one that's learning here because they're going to be learning about the individual. And then considering assistive technology. There's a lot of assistive technology out there, and I don't know if there's anybody here that works with that kind of stuff, but that definitely is an area to be looking at. Support looks different for every person. The supporter is a voluntary person. It's not like somebody pays them or anything like that, but it needs to be voluntary. Remember, that person is not deciding things for you. They're a listener. They're not putting their values on you, and they just let you make your own decisions. So they shouldn't be telling you what to do. They should be giving you options and letting you know what the options are. And so if any of you I don't know if there's anybody here that goes to like team meetings and things like that, but if there's meetings that are held for you, or if you go to team meetings and you're actually a participant in the team meetings as a person there, I think they need to be taking some time during that meeting, whether it's 5 minutes or 10, and giving that time to you. And if that isn't happening, I'd start requesting that because this meeting's about you anyways, it's about your life. And so I would just encourage you to do that. Takeaways, it's about what you decide, about the areas, who's going to support you, what kind of support you want, and how much support you want. And so there's no magical formula. It takes time and effort and patience, and just have to be willing to try.
And so, last but not least, you might be wondering, do I have to have that written agreement? The short answer is no. You can use SDM without putting it in writing. However, there are some advantages to having it in writing. So one, it protects your confidential information as that decision maker, because you might be asking your supporter to gather confidential information that's yours, maybe your medical records or whatever. The law has protections for you. It has protections for your supporter, so that if they're doing the job that you and them talked about and they're pretty sure they're doing everything that you want them to do, then they're protected too from getting in trouble for doing something they shouldn't be doing. And it also protects people you share your agreement with. So if you give it to your doctor's office, then they should rely on that agreement, and the law requires them to rely on it, but it also protects them if they think they're doing what your agreement says. So having that written, it's a plan that everyone can read and understand. And so it's important to talk about that. Even if you have it in writing, if you're the decision maker, it's important that your supporter is very clear on what help you're asking for. So it doesn't hurt to put it in writing and talk to them a lot about it. This is my decision. This is what I've asked you for help with. And so you talk about those areas, and you talk about how long your agreement is in place. So maybe you want this person to continue as your supporter. Maybe you just want to try it out for a while. You get to decide how long you want to support her. And so if you're putting it in writing, there's very few requirements that you have to meet. But here's when I talked about notarized or witnessed, it's either one notary public or two witnesses. And your witnesses have to be at least 18. They have to be able to be a witness. They can't be an employer of your supporter or an agent of your supporter. And they certainly can't be somebody that you owe money to. And so when you look at, well, where do I start? This sounds complicated. It's not that bad. We have a template on our website. It is also in the Guide to Independence in your folders. We also have a stack of them on the table, and you're welcome to snatch as many as you'd like and share those with people or take them back to wherever you're coming from if you want some on hand. So you don't have to use this format, but it's nice and easy. You can fill it out on our website. You can print it off and fill it out with a pen or a pencil, whatever works for you. We'd be happy if you need it in another format too. Please let Protection and Advocacy know. And so what do you do with that? Once you fill out this form and you get it signed off on by your witnesses or your notary public, you keep it. You should have a copy. Your supporter should have a copy. If you choose to share it with somebody like your dentist's office, make sure if it changes, you ask for it back, okay? But you absolutely can share it. And so for supported decision-making, if somebody, I'm thinking maybe young people who, like Angie said, haven't been legal adults yet and had that decision-making, if you were to be a young person and you were all of a sudden to get this supported decision-making agreement, this would be proof that you're the decision-maker, you're the boss. If you've been in a guardianship or you've just never had the power to say yes, no, maybe so, and have your word be the last word on that, this represents your ability to be your own decision maker, and so celebrate. If you do a supported decision-making agreement, take a selfie. Ask somebody to bake a cake or bake a cake yourself. Get some balloons. Take an opportunity to celebrate what a big deal this could be. And so here is the magic in how they end, how they change. So you can, if you want to stop your supported decision-making agreement, and as Angie said, supporters don't have to continue, neither do decision makers. You can end it at any time. You can say, you're fired. So you can talk to somebody. If you're the decision maker, you're fired. I don't want to support her anymore. Thanks, but no thanks. Whatever you choose to say and however polite you choose to say it. You can use an assistive technology device. Absolutely fine. If you're the decision maker, you can also do things to show you don't want the agreement. So you can tear it up. You can throw it in the trash can. You can stomp on it, put it in a mud puddle, whatever indicates that you're just done with this agreement. That counts as ending the agreement. Anything else? So I mentioned you're in charge of how long the agreement goes. If you say, I want a supporter for 6 months, and you put that in your agreement, when 6 months is done, so is your agreement. Or you can say, I want a supporter until I have my wisdom teeth pulled and 2 weeks afterwards, so that I have time to recover. I just need some help getting through this wisdom tooth thing. And then when the wisdom tooth is done, 2 weeks later, your supporting agreement would end. We want to protect people who enter into supported decision-making agreements. So the law says that if your supporter were to be convicted of a crime involving neglect, abuse, or exploitation, they will not be your supporter anymore. If there's a restraining order issued to protect you from a supporter, your supporter will not be your supporter anymore. And as Angie mentioned, your supporter needs to have that capacity to make decisions and help communicate. So if they cannot communicate decisions for you and they cannot help you make those decisions from a capacity perspective, they cannot be your supporter anymore. And so let's see here. We got 3 minutes left. I'll run through a few high points here. I mentioned that your supporter can help you get that information. You still have to sign authorizations to allow that supporter to gather information for you. They can't just go into the doctor's office and go, hey, I'm Mandy's supporter. I'm going to need some medical records. You have to have that. You, the decision maker, have to give me, the supporter, or whatever. I need a paper that I can show them that you have allowed me to get that information for you. And so I mentioned if you think you're a supporter and you think you're doing the right thing, you should be protected. If you're somebody who gets and is asked to use a supported decision-making agreement to give records or whatever, if you think you're doing the right thing and you're looking at that agreement, you should be protected. Once that information is released, your supporter has to protect it. If they have confidential information about you, they can't give it to anyone unless you've told them to give it to somebody else. So they have to protect your information. And so here's our takeaways. It doesn't have to be in writing, but there are benefits to having in writing. It's easier for everyone to see a plan that's in writing, and then everyone's clear on who's doing what. And it makes it easier for you to tell other people what this agreement's about when it's in writing. You can show it to them. There's no required format, but we have one that we'll share with you. And look here, we have 2 minutes left for questions, and I think we'll be like hanging around, kind of gathering our doodads afterwards. So anybody have any questions? Good question. Do we know of any SDMs in place? This is a really hard one to answer. I do not. If anyone is using supported decision making, I have heard that it's being used, but I don't actually know anyone who is using it.
We are actually transitioning our daughter that has autism over to a supported decision-making situation. And it was actually, we asked the judge about it the last time, you know, it's like every 5 years. And he knew about it, and he was all for it. He said, he said, start now. And he said, we'll see you in 5 years. And he said, if she's ready, she is. And if not, she can tell us. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
And that's a great point, too. Because just because you might choose to try supported decision making, if guardianship is needed in the future, that door is not closed. Guardianship can still be entered into. Supported decision making doesn't prevent it. And if you're in a guardianship, you can ask the court to consider supported decision making, to maybe limit your guardianship and let you try making some more decisions on your own with the help of a supporter or by yourself, whatever you choose, right? So, yeah, I'm really glad. And we don't know. The reason we don't know this is because you didn't have to tell anyone, right? That was just between you and your daughter. And so the beauty of this is people are just doing it out and about, and it's wonderful. And they're making these decisions on their own, and they don't need to go to court. They don't need to spend any money. They don't need to tell anyone.
What I've noticed in talking to some of the people that I know that have children with disabilities is they're probably doing it. There's an SD without a court order in place. And so I'm seeing some of the people, as we're getting older, of course, we want to make sure that our children can live on their own. They're doing it, and they just don't have a court order. So, but you don't hear about that, right?
That's awesome. Okay, let's see here. We are 11:31, so I think, is lunch next? I feel like lunch is next, and I don't want to keep anyone from lunch. So if you'd like to talk to us afterwards, absolutely. If you did not get a blue folder, please come see us afterwards, and we'll make sure you get one. Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I knew those were in there. Those, yes. Yeah, if you have any of these reviews, please pass them down. That would be awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your conference here.